أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين وبالقاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نون والقلم وما يسطرون ما أنت بنعمة ربك بمجنون وإن لك لأجرا غير ممنون وإنك لعلى خلق عظيم صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات بجمع محمد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. The verse that I recited for tonight's discussion is from the very first ayat of Surah Wal-Qalam, which is chapter number 68 from the Holy Quran. And the reason I recited this verse, aside from the verse that I had been reciting up until this point from Surah Araf 54, is because tonight's discussion takes a turn in the direction where this ayat is pointing us towards. Now I'll have inshallah opportunity after the day of Ashur to complete the thought. But tonight I don't want to take too much time in discussing the topic that I had brought for you, as it's the night of Ashur. The night which is no less than the night of Hashr and Qayamat, especially to the ladies and the women and the children in Karbala. This is the night which is the only night that promises to them that you will be safe and secured. What happens tomorrow is not guaranteed. And therefore, how do they go about spending this night? What do they do differently tonight? And what is it that they look forward to for tomorrow? Maybe some are thinking, we hope that this night never ends. So when the night never ends, the day of Ashur will never come. But for some, the night was too small and too short. As Imam said that I like to read Quran and I like to perform Salat. And Imam spent the entire night doing that. Likewise, many of the ashab of Imam Hussein, they spent this night preparing their weapons for tomorrow. The adult members of the companions were speaking to the youngsters and the children that were present as to what is about to come. Let us get you prepared for tomorrow. The women are equally playing the same role when they're coming to their kids and reassuring to them as to what to expect tomorrow and how not to back down from this imtihan that is ahead of them. So indeed, this night is a very, very important night from all those aspects. I know you want to do girya tonight. You want to shed tears. You want to give condolences to Imam of your time. And inshallah, you'll get plenty of opportunity when we embark on the masaib of Sayyid al-Shuhada, especially his young son, Ali Akbar. The ayat that I recited under the same topic that we've been discussing, which is Naqsh A'imma Dar Ihya Deen, the role of Imams in reviving the religion. And we've been speaking about the distortion that came about in this deen. From the time the noble Prophet Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam leaves this world, and especially in the first 25 years before the Khilafat al-Zahiri of Amirul Mu'mineen. And we mentioned the first element last night, and my intention was to mention both of these elements, but of course time did not give us permission. The first element that we had talked about in relation to this sort of distortion was tahrif in the kalam, in the riwayat, and in the ahadith, by abandoning the hadith. So the concept known as man'i hadith. Nobody was allowed to narrate anything from Rasulullah specifically. If you did, you would be punished. And the reason that was given, that you have words from Prophet which might conflict with one another. And when this situation arises, you will put people in confusion now, and the future generations will be even more confused. So it is better not to quote anything from Rasulullah. The second caliph gave orders to his governors, especially the one who went to Iraq, that you're going to a land where people recite Quran so beautifully. You don't want to tamper with that by mentioning the ahadith of Prophet, lest they forget to recite Quran. And while all this was happening, there were still people who continued to fight this way. You had people such as Salman, you had Ammar, I gave example of him, Abu Dharr rather, I gave example of him last night, Mitham Tammar, who gave his life by reciting the fadail of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa alayhi. In fact, Abu Dharr is someone who narrated so many fadail of Amirul Mu'mineen that they had to do what they did with Abu Dharr. First, they banished him to Sham. Then when he was sent back to Medina, didn't let him stay there for too long. Then he was sent in exile to Rabza, and that's where he died. It is Abu Dharr who mentions the fadail of Ali, such as the fadail which talk about from the kalam of Rasulullah, that, "O Ali, your example to my ummat is like Qul huwallahu ahad." Ali, your example, you are to my ummat is like Qul huwallahu ahad. How? Man qara'aha marratan, whoever recites this surah once, it is as if قَرَأَ فَكَأَنَّمَا قَرَأَ الْقُرْآنَ ثُلْثَ الْقُرْآنِ. It is as if they have recited 1/3 of Quran. وَمَنْ قَرَأَهَا مَرَّتَيْنِ فَكَأَنَّمَا قَرَأَ ثُلْثَيْ الْقُرْآنِ. The one who recites it twice, it is as if they've recited 2/3 of Quran. وَمَنْ قَرَأَ ثَلَاث مَرَّاتٍ, the one who recites it 3 times, it is as if they have recited the Quran entirely. And then he gives example. Oh Ali, how is that in relation to you? Man ahabbaka biqalbihi faqad adraka thulthal iman. The one who helps you, or the one who loves you with his heart, it is as if that person has adopted and secured 1/3 of iman. Because the one who is kulli iman himself, his love, if you have just love through your heart, it's 1/3 of iman. And then the riwayat continues, Man ahabbaka biqalbihi wa bilisanihi faqad adraka thulthay al-iman. The one who loves you with his heart, and he helps you with his tongue, and loves you with his tongue, and reads and recites and mentions your merits and your fadail, it is that person has secured 2/3 of iman. And the one who helps you with his qalb, with his lisan, and with his hands, it is as if that person has secured the entire iman altogether. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So they have to make Abu Dhar quiet down. They have to shut Abu Dhar down. Otherwise, he will be mentioning such riwayat in relation to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Similarly, he says, Oh Ali, your example is like the example of Kaaba fi ummati. Oh Ali, you are like the Kaaba amongst my ummat. Why? Because looking at Kaaba is ibadat, and circling around it is farida. People should do the same thing. Looking at your face is ibadat, and circling around you is also farida. Kaaba, people come to it. It doesn't go to anyone. Similarly, O Ali, you're on haq. People should come to you. You don't need to go to anyone. These are the riwayat that they want to shut down from the kalam and the words of Abu Dhar. A lot of time they raise this point that you talk about Ali, but you don't follow the seerat of Ali. He said, how? See, you mention Ali ibn Abi Talib so much, but you lack in following the seerat of Ali. In what aspect? He said Ali was someone whose slogan was Allahu Akbar. Your slogan is Ya Ali. Remember yesterday I mentioned that the word Shia in Quran, the ayat which was that Ibrahim is the Shia of Nuh, and then Hazrat Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, the helper of Hazrat Musa was called the Shia, and the enemy was called the Aduv of Hazrat Musa. And that person who was called the Shia of Hazrat Musa, Fastaghas, he called upon Hazrat Musa by saying, Ya Musa, O Musa, help me. So this is the reason, this is the dalil why we say, Ya Ali, Madad, O Ali, help us. That person in Quran is calling for Hazrat Musa and his help. You don't consider that to be shirk. You don't call that to be shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Similarly, we call, when we are the followers and the Shia of Ali, we say Ya Ali Madad as well. Say, well, you don't follow the seerat of Ali. Ali said Allahu Akbar. In all the battles, Ali said Allahu Akbar. But you say Ya Ali. So you're not following the seerat of Ali. You got to realize that Ali did not fight in one type of wars. Ali fought in 3 different types of wars. The first set of wars that Ali fought in was against the kuffar and mushrikeen. The fight was in the name of Tawheed, because Madd Muqabil did not believe in the wahdaniyat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the shi'ar and the slogan at that point was what? La ilaha illallah. Or Allahu Akbar was the slogan at that time, because from the opposite side they were saying, Lana Uzza, we have Uzza, wala Uzza lakum, and you don't have Uzza. Rasulullah said, say this back to them. We have Allah, Allahu Maulana, wala Maula. We have Allah, Allah is our Maulana, and you don't have a Maula like Allah. And this was the slogan that was being shared between in the fights which was against mushrikeen and the kuffar. So it was appropriate for it to be La ilaha illallah, to be the slogan. But when Ali fought in the fights that were against Ahl Kitab, such as the Khaybar, the slogan over there was not La ilaha illallah. Because these people already believed in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There was no dispute with the Jews regarding the wahdaniyat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, the slogan over there was Muhammadur Rasulullah. We are not fighting you because you don't believe in the wahdaniyat of Allah. We're fighting you because you deny the risalat and the nubuwwat of Rasulullah. So that was the second front in which Ali was fighting. The third front in which Ali fought many wars in his own time, such as the Battle of Siffin, the Battle of Jamal, the Battle of Nahrawan, was the fight in which all these people who are standing in front of Ali ibn Abi Talib are Muslimin, so-called. They believe in the wahdaniyat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at least on paper. They believe that Prophet was the last of the prophets and the messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what they don't believe in is in the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. Therefore the nara and the slogan over there was Aliyun Waliyullah. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa alayhi. So Ali did not fight in one types of wars. Ali fought in three different types of battles and wars. He said, well, how does that relate to you? Still, Ali's first type of wars was he saying, Allahu Akbar. He says that the reason we say, Ya Ali, is today our fight is not with those who are mushrikeen. Our audiences are not those who do not believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we go ahead and tell them, La ilaha illallah. Today, our audiences are not the ones who don't believe in the Prophet and his Khatm al-Nubuwwat, so that we go ahead and talk about Muhammad Rasulullah. Today, our audiences are those who have not believed in the wilayat of Ali. Therefore, we have to continue on this front to call upon the nara of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. Salawat bi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So that's what Ali was trying, that's what Abu Dhar was trying to do. Abu Dhar was trying to relate these ahadith, and he had to be shut down. So that was the first instance, man'i hadith. Don't let anyone narrate any hadith. The moment you shut down people narrating the hadith, and if people had accumulated ahadith on different pieces of things that they had written it down, collected. All those materials were collected. What happened then? It was all burned down, so that none of those remnants and references would remain, and tomorrow nobody will be able to validate that. But you had people, as I mentioned, such as Salman, such as Abu Dhar, such as Ammar, such as Rashid Hijri. These were people, and of course our first four Imams, who continued to narrate ahadith from the kalam of Rasulullah. So tonight, in the brief time that I want to take from you, is the second element of this discussion that we've been having, the role of Imams. What was the second element in distortion of this deen? First was man'i hadith. So stop people from narrating hadith. And I mentioned this silsila continued for 100 years, or at least first 90 years until 100 after Hijrah. So after the wafat of Rasulullah, for 90 years, this silsila continued until time Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, who came and who lifted officially the ban. In fact, asked people, if you have anything from the kalam of Rasulullah, bring forth, so that we'll go ahead and document this. So that's how long it took. But of course, by that time, there were factories that were installed to go ahead and duplicate the ahadith that were said in reference and in the merits and in the fadail of Ahlul Bayt, and go ahead and copy them in the same exact style. Urdu में कहते हैं, नक़ल के लिए भी अक़ल की ज़रूरत होती है. You want to cheat? You shouldn't, first of all. But if you want to cheat, you need to use your aql, even when you're cheating. You find such riwayat in their books, which you just is mind-boggling as to how much similarity there is to the riwayat that are in front of regarding Ahlul Bayt. The riwayat which has come for the fadilat of Ali ibn Abi Talib, you'll find the fadail of the khulafa is also there. You only heard this part of the hadith, Ana madinatul ilm wa aliyun babuha. Wa man arada al-ilma falyati biha or falyatiha. That I am the city of knowledge and Ali is the door of that city. Whoever wants, come through the door. Well, they associated the shubbak or the windows, the fasil, the boundary, the saqf, the roof, to associate it with other members or other khulafa as well. That yes, Ali is the door, so and so is the window, so and so is the fasil, so and so is the roof. Who comes into the city through the roof? Who comes inside the house through the window? Who comes inside through other than door? Only a thief will come inside other than the door. Salawat beji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So you have a hadith which says, Hassan wal Hussein, Sayyida Shababi Ahl Jannah. You find on the same tone, Abu Bakr wa Umar, Sayyada Kuhul Ahl Jannah. That the first and the second Khalifa are the leaders of the elderly in paradise. So Hassan and Hussein are the leaders of the youth of paradise. Look at the similarity between this hadith and the one that has been forced in regarding the first two. Baba, you need some aql in fabricating these ahadith. Quran mentions that there's nobody who's old will go there. Someone said, what? What does that mean? That means we are old, we're not going to go there? He said, no, anyone who goes there will become young again. So there's no need for elderly over there. Everyone who leaves this world and arrives in paradise, they will be young again. And therefore, there's no need for elderly over there because there is an elderly. Why there's no need? Because when you get old, there's a lot of illnesses and a lot of things that come along with it. You become fragile. You want youth to be there. So therefore, you have the leaders of the youth over there. But when there aren't any elderly, what are these two doing over there, being the leaders of the elderly over there? So these sort of ahadith came into existence. So the second element is that I want your attention on it, is to devalue the credibility of Rasulullah. You'd be surprised what type of things that were fabricated to go ahead and devalue the credibility of Rasulullah. For example, in Sahih Muslim, there's the second after Sahih Bukhari, there's a section, there's a bab, which is called Babu man la'anahu al-nabi aw sabbahu ja'alahu Allahu zakatan wa tahura. The section regarding the la'anat sent by a nabi on individuals. So Rasulullah sent la'anat on certain people. So there's an entire section. They tell us not to send la'anat. And look at Rasulullah, there's an entire section in Sahih Muslim regarding the people upon whom Rasulullah sent what? La'anat. He said, Babu man la'anahu nabi aw sabbahu. Sab is something which is not permissible. It's cursing. Sabbu shitam. And we find in our own riwayat that Amirul Mu'minin telling his own people that, inni akrahu an takunu minas sabbabin. It is a matter of, kirahat for me that you are amongst those who curse sabbabin. But there's an entire bab in Sahih Muslim which says what? It is the section regarding Prophet, those people he cursed and he sent lanat upon them. But ja'alahu Allahu zakatan wa tahura. But when he sent la'nat or cursed someone, Allah made his la'nat and curse to be zakat and tahur. Allah made it into pakizgi and taharat. Let me explain. So there's a bab which called that Prophet sent la'nat on individuals or da'a alay wa laysa huwa ahlan li dhalik. So Rasulullah sent la'nat upon people who were not deserving of la'nat. First of all, that's the entire section. So there are people that exist that Rasulullah sent la'nat upon them, cursed them, but these were not deserving of that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made that la'nat and that curse to be what? A matter of zakat, a matter of ajr, a matter of reward for those people. So I go ahead and, I'm just giving example, of course, not putting myself in the shoes of Rasulullah. I go ahead and curse someone and send la'nat upon it. It serves as what? Reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Basically, that's what they're saying. First, try to fathom and comprehend the extent to which they're going. Associating la'nat and la'nat we can understand. Towards Rasulullah, and then saying, no, if Rasulullah ever did that, it was because those people will be then the recipient of the zakat. Why? Or recipient of the ajr and reward. Why? Because they did not deserve the la'nat. That tells you another thing. Rasulullah was cursing or slandering people who didn't deserve to be cursed at or sent la'nat upon. So there are many questions that arise. Of course, I'll let you think about all those questions in your minds and we'll move forward with it. Many of these traditions. So in Sahih Muslim, this is Bab number 25, Hadith 2600, 2601, 2603, if anyone needs references. Many narrations in this section is from the most credible source in the Maktab of Ahl Tasannun, that is Ummul Mu'mineen, Bibi Aisha. She is the one who's narrating majority of these ahadith. The Rasulullah cursed people out of anger. So she says one day there's a group of people that came to see Rasulullah and they were speaking so loudly upon him and they were getting so close that Rasulullah was suffocated. Eventually helpers came and took Rasulullah out of the crowd. When Rasulullah came back home, Rasulullah sent and la'nat upon those people. Bibi Aisha said, I told Rasulullah, oh Rasul, these people will die. You just sent halakat upon them, because when you send la'nat on someone, that is halakat for them. Rasulullah responded by saying that no, that is not the case. And then he narrates this. Oh Aisha, Ana Muhammadun Basharun Yaghdibu Kama Yaghdibul Bashar. I'm a person like anyone else. I get angry like other people get angry. And then he said, I made a covenant with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahumma inni attakhidhu indaka ahadan lan tukhlifani. That I'm making a covenant with you, that of course you will not go mukhalifat, that I am the bashar, I am a mankind, just like anyone else. فَأَيُّ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ آذَيْتُهُ شَتَمْتُهُ لَعَنْتُهُ جَلَلْتُهُ. Anyone that I have cursed, anyone that I have sent la'nat upon, anyone that I have harmed, do what? فَجَعَلْهَا لَهُ كَفَّارَةً وَقُرْبَةً تُقَرِّبُهُ بِهَا إِلَيْكَ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. Turn that into kafara, turn that into ajr for that individual, because I have done it out of what? Anger. So two people came to see Rasulullah and really annoyed Rasulullah to the extent that Rasulullah got up and left. And then Rasulullah came home and he sent la'nat upon those people. And then he said, no, don't worry about it. I got angry. So because I got angry, I sent la'nat upon them. But my la'nat upon them is what? It's going to serve as ajr for them. So this is good. No worries in regards. So that's one aspect. Then you find narrations in the same book which says, Sabbabul Muslim fusuqun wa qitaluhu kufrun. Anyone who curses at another Muslim, that act is fisq. That person is fasiq. The one who curses on another Muslim. Man la'ana mu'minan fahuwa ka qatalahu aw ka qatlihi. The one who sent la'nat on another mu'min, it is as if he has taken the life of that mu'min. And the likes of such hadith. That means what? This bab is telling us that Rasulullah would send la'nat, and this la'nat is as if Rasulullah has taken the life of that individual. Or there's another bab. This is the irony that you find. The section just prior to this one talks about Babun Nahi an La'nat Dawwab wa ghayriha. The Rasulullah prohibiting sending la'nat upon the four-legged animals. That if you see an animal, because of course back in the day people used animals for everything. And they will beat the animal, they will hurt the animal, they will even swear at the animal. So Rasulullah said, there's nahi upon cursing and swearing at the animal. So while there's a bab which exists, Rasulullah is prohibiting sending curse to an animal while he himself goes out and curses people. And then not only just the animals, but ghayriha. What does that mean? That means other things aside from animals. What other things could be? So there's a riwayat, there's a person, it was a windy, it was a storm and there was a lot of wind. This person was trying to get to his house. His abba flew away. So his libas, his clothing, whatever was loose, flew away. That man cursed at the wind. When he cursed at the wind, Rasulullah said, don't curse at the wind because it's ma'mur by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do this job. And whoever curses at things like this, the la'anat returns back to that person. So if you're going to curse at the wind, you're going to curse at the animal, what's happening? La'anat is returning back to you. It's so much ironic that Rasulullah himself is cursing and sending la'anat on individuals, mu'mineen and muslimeen. The tawjih and the explanation is Rasulullah is doing it out of ajr and out of ghazab, so it is going to serve as taharat and kaffara for those people. And then he himself is making it forbidden for them to curse at other things. While you find in the same continuation of the bab that Rasulullah says this about himself, Inni lam ub'ath la'anan wa innama bu'ithtu rahmatan lil alameen. That I was not sent as someone who would curse. I was sent as someone who was rahmat for mankind. My wujud is rahmatan lil alameen. I'm not here to harm anyone. I'm here to go ahead and provide comfort for the people. And we find so many stories of that. This was nothing that people were pressuring Rasulullah. Rasulullah was hurt. He was, pelted by stones. He was bleeding when he comes out of Taif. Jibreel comes, oh Rasulullah, if you order, I will turn the city upside down. Rasulullah said, I was not sent as the zahmat upon people. I was sent as rahmatan lil alameen. My wujud is rahmat. I don't want to be the matter of azab on any individual. While all that is happening, we see that these sort of ahadith are associated. Same Ummul Mu'mineen narrates that Prophet didn't curse any Muslim in his entire life. So how much contradiction is there that the previous section mentions so many riwayat that Rasulullah cursed so-and-so, Rasulullah sent lanat on so-and-so, Rasulullah said this to that person, to that person. And then the very next section talks about Rasulullah in his entire life did not curse any individual, any person. This is, if you can follow along with me, of what I was able to gather from it. This is being done systematically to do what? To devalue the credibility of Rasulullah. That you have these conflicting riwayat mawjood in the most authentic books. And when you have these sort of conflicts, people are not going to take the word of Rasulullah seriously. So when Rasulullah comes out and he says in regards to Salman, minna ahlul bayt, no, don't take this seriously. When Rasulullah says Ammar ma'al haq, don't take this seriously. When Rasulullah says regarding Abu Dhar, ma adallat al-khadra wa la aqallat al-ghabra ala dhi lahjatin asdaq min Abi Dhar, that there is not a person more righteous than Abu Dhar who has ever walked on the land and who has ever been provided a shadow on this earth than Abu Dhar. Don't take these words seriously. Why? Because these are the people who will be mentioning the riwayat and the merits of Ahlul Bayt alayhi wassalatu wassalam. Salawat bi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And then when you find riwayat which are condemning Banu Umayyah, which are condemning Ali Marwan or Ali Hakam or the family of Abu Sufyan, these riwayat then are also questioned. Well, Rasulullah sent this la'anat. For example, you have in the same Sahih Muslim this riwayat that Rasulullah asked Ibn Abbas, go to Muawiyah and call him towards me. Idhab wad'u li Muawiyah. Go call him. He said, فَجِئْتُ فَقُلْتُ هُوَ يَأْكُلُ. I came I saw him, he was eating. I came back to Rasulullah. I said, Rasulullah, he's eating. Rasulullah said, go ahead and call him again. اذهب وادعوا لمعاوية قال فجئت فقلت هو يأكل. I went to get him. He was eating again. I came back and I told Rasulullah, he was eating. Rasulullah said, لا أشبع الله بطنه. May Allah never fill his stomach. And that's what happened. Even till the last moment of his life, he would eat, he would eat, and he would say, well, I'm still not full. And he would continue. So that was the la'nat of Rasulullah upon him. And there are clear words regarding these families, the words that Rasulullah used. Well, this way we find out when Rasulullah sent la'nat upon these individuals, what was it for? Rasulullah was doing it out of ghadab, and these individuals were good people. They were not ahl of this la'nat from Rasulullah. So therefore this actually served as the reward and the ajr for Ali Abu Sufyan, Ali Marwan, and Ali Hakam. That's the conclusion that you can derive from such riwayat. Again, Rasulullah did not have knowledge according to their belief, did not have knowledge regarding worldly affairs. This is also part of the same narrations. And I'm not quoting anything from third or the secondary source from Ahl Sunnah. These are all from the Sahih. Rasulullah did not have knowledge about the worldly affairs. Rasulullah one day was passing by a place in Nakhlistan. People were, on top of the trees, and they were spraying the seeds of dates, tree. They were spreading the seeds of it, because the palm tree, there are two types of, there's nar and there's madda. There's male and there's female. Female is the one which produces the dates, not the male. So these people who lived in that land, they knew this. It was common knowledge. So they would take these seeds from the male tree and they will spread it over the female tree, and that's how it will produce the best of the dates. Rasulullah was walking by there. He saw people do that. He said, don't do it. If I was you, I would not do it. This is not right. They stopped. They paid attention to Rasulullah's words. Next time Rasulullah went by that place, he saw all the trees had dried up and did not produce any dates that year. They said, Rasulullah asked him, what happened? What happened to your trees? How come there's nothing on it? He said, Rasulullah, you told us not to spray the practice that we used to do all the time, and this is what happened. Rasulullah responded, Antum a'lamu bi amri dunyakum. You are more knowledgeable in the affairs of this world. Don't take my word for it. You have more knowledge about the worldly affairs. Keep me out of it. That means Rasul's job is only to teach us about salat, about dua, about fasting, about Quran, about hajj, and all the ibadat. And he has nothing to do as far as the mu'amilat are concerned. This is the conclusion that you derive from such a prophet. This means you can choose a better hakim than me, because if I can't even tell you which type of seeds to use for as far as your tree is concerned, and that, by the way, is something which is a common knowledge for any young man just by living in that area. If you live in a desert area where there are date trees, you will know this is a common knowledge over there. Rasulullah is 50 years old at that time. Hasn't he learned this? Even if it wasn't the knowledge that was given to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, merely just living there, he would have had that knowledge. But Rasulullah says what? No. You are more knowledgeable when it comes to these things. Leave these sort of things away from me, and don't take it from me, by the way. To do what? To devalue the word of Rasulullah. That means don't take everything from Rasulullah. Only take those ahkamat that are pertaining to Quran, that are pertaining to ibadat, and that's it. What happened after that? Well, this is where you would not take the word of Rasulullah serious. This actually added and aided the Quraysh who were already calling Rasulullah insane. Thus the ayat which I recited for you. Noon وَالْقَلَمِ وَمَا يَسْطُرُونَ مَا أَنْتَ بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ بِمَجْنُونَ. Quran is coming and defending Rasulullah that you're not majnoon. While the Quraysh were continuously calling Rasulullah to be insane with the ideas that he was coming about. And not just the Quraysh at that time, but the Westerners today. They use these sort of material, because of course they have dug all this stuff in, and they have gone through all of this stuff. For example, this writer, Romanian author Constantin Virgil, He wrote a book about the biography of Rasulullah, and he proved in his book that Rasulullah was merely an ordinary person. Nothing more than that. Things that he brought were of ordinary basis, and it was not something which we would expect from a person like, a prophet. The third aspect of this discussion that I wanted to complete, I'm taking a little bit of your time, is that Rasulullah used to forget. So the first, as far as the kalam of Rasulullah, to go ahead and point at it that Rasulullah sometime did this. Rasulullah, for example, sent la'nat, and then it was because of this reason, to devalue the character and the credibility of Rasulullah. Rasulullah used to forget things. He used to forget, just like ordinary people, you and I. How many times do we forget things? We forget things even when we are younger, let alone when you get older. As you get older, you start forgetting things. Rasulullah used to forget things very easily. So there are riwayat, again, in Bukhari and in Muslim, by al-Mu'mineen and Abu Huraira, who mention what? That one day Rasulullah walks into the masjid, he hears this man reciting Quran, سَمِعَ رَجُلًا يَقْرَأُ مِنَ اللَّيْلِ فَقَالَ يَرْحَمُهُ اللَّهُ لَقَدْ أَذْكُرَنِي كَذَا وَكَذَا آيَةً كُنْتُ أَسْقَطُهَا. Thank you, may Allah have mercy upon you that you reminded me of the verses that I used to omit while I was reciting this surah. So when I used to recite this surah, Surah Al-Layl, I would skip those verses because I had forgotten. Thank you for reminding me. Now Rasulullah could have just picked up the Quran because it was mudawwan. He had the words and the pages. He could have referred back to the Quran. We are told before coming to the minbar by our elders that when you go and recite an ayat of Quran, make sure that you read it before you come. I go a step forward. I go ahead and write it down so I don't make any mistake. But he said, Rasulullah heard this man reciting Quran, and he said, may Allah have mercy upon you because I used to skip those ayat. He heard another man, he said, Rahimallahu laqad azkurani ayatan kuntu unsaytuha. You reminded me of the ayat which I had forgotten. So Rasulullah used to easily forget things. Here, I want to conclude. I know I don't need to derive any conclusion for you. But we find in Bukhari and in Muslim, majority of these riwayat narrated by Abu Huraira. In one such riwayat, Abu Huraira narrates that Rasulullah was leading, and I can't remember if it was Maghrib prayers or Isha prayer, but Rasulullah recited 2 rakat, and then he finished. And then he got up and he went towards the place where he used to give khutbah. He struck his hands on top of each other. Look at the details this person is mentioning. That Rasulullah did this, Rasulullah did that, whether it was Maghrib or whether it was Isha, I can't recall it. So you get confused in this part of the riwayat. And then Rasulullah went outside. Nobody dared, when Rasulullah was in this position, to question him. We all just said, okay, whatever he did, whatever he said, maybe there's something new that had come down. We were all scared of asking him or correcting him. Rasulullah, it's Maghrib or Isha, what did you do? Did you do Qasr? So one man whose name, which is mentioned in these riwayat, is Zul Yadain. This person, his name is Amr ibn Nadla. He gets up and he says to Rasulullah, "Oh Rasulullah, what happened to Isha prayer? Am nasita, am qassarta salat? Did you forget, or did you make Salatul Isha qasr?" We're home. Rasulullah said, "Wallahi ma nasito wal ma qassarto." I did not forget, nor did I make it qasr. I recited the full. So in his mind, Rasulullah has done what it should have been done. So then everybody who was present, they sort of got some sort of courage to go ahead and say, Rasulullah, no, Zul Yadain is correct. You did recite 2 rakat. So when everybody got on board, Rasulullah then agreed. He said, well, I must have then forgotten. So this riwayat is there. Bukhari and Muslim both narrate this. The problem with this riwayat is Abu Huraira, who's narrating it. Dhul Yadain, this person, because he had long arms, he was called Dhul Yadain. Amr ibn Nadla as his name. This man took part in Battle of Badr, and he attained shahadat in the Battle of Badr, which took place in the 2nd year after Hijrah. Abu Huraira brought Islam in the 7th year after Hijrah. He was in Yemen up until that point. He comes to Medina. He had no idea about Battle of Badr. He comes to Medina at the time in the 7th year after Hijrah. And then he narrates this tradition with such particularity that whether it was Maghrib prayer, whether it was Isha prayer, Rasulullah recited 2 rakat, then he struck his hand on right, on left. Well, all this while, this person who had been dead for 5 years, while you are narrating this hadith from him. Nobody, the surprising fact is that we don't expect ordinary people to go ahead and do research about it. Even their own would not go ahead and pick such riwayat, take them apart to go ahead and find out the flaws that exist. Why? Because it's serving one purpose. And that purpose is to devalue the character and the credibility of Rasulullah. Many a times, people of ilm, when Abu Huraira would recite a hadith in front of them, and they would say, well, this sounds fishy. Abu Huraira, is this really from Rasulullah or is this from you? He said, هَذَا شَيْءٌ قَالَهُ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ أَمْ هَذَا مِنْ كِيسِكَ? Is it from your pocket or is it from Rasulullah? And Abu Huraira would respond by saying, well, people have realized what I've said. They're not buying it because they know that this is made up, because this is Ahl Ilm who are sitting in front of me. हाँ, ये मैंने अपनी जेब से निकाली है, ये बनावटी है. And he would apologize at that moment. इस तरह की रिवायात आपको नज़र आएंगी जिसमें रसूलुल्लाह के किरदार के ऊपर आँच आती है. बहरहाल ये मौजू मैं चाहता था कि आज मुकम्मल हो जाए इस हवाले से कि जो 2 एलिमेंट्स आपके सामने पेश किए, जो 2 उन्सुर बने जिसकी वजह से तहरीफ दीन में आई, और उनमें से एक मन हदीस और दूसरा रसूलुल्लाह के किरदार के ऊपर. लेकिन रसूलुल्लाह का किरदार ख़त्म नहीं हो सकता था, क्योंकि करबला में एक ऐसी शख्सियत मौजूद है कि जब वो मक़तल का रुख करता है तो इमाम क्या कहते हैं कि ए अल्लाह तू गवाह रहना, बरज़ा इलैहिम ग़ुलामुन, वो जवान उनके दरमियान जा रहा है, अशबहुन्नासे खल्क़न व खुल्क़न व मंतिक़न बिरसूलिक, जिसको सबसे ज़्यादा शबाहत है खल्क़न खुल्क़न, अपने अखलाक में, अपने दिखने में, अपनी गुफ्तार में रसूलुल्लाह के साथ. वकुन्ना इज़ा इश्तक़ना रसूलुल्लाह, एंड जब भी हमको रसूल की ज़ियारत की ख्वाहिश होती थी, नज़रना इलैह, हम उसकी तरफ देख लिया करते थे. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि इनके तमाम इन इक़दामात के बाद से कार तमाम हो गया हो. अहले बैत की क़ुरबानियाँ इसीलिए हैं, और ख़ास करके करबला में जो इमाम हुसैन की क़ुरबानी है वो इसी मकसद के लिए है, ताकि ये दीन मिटने ना पाए, ये दीन ज़ाया ना हो जाए. मैंने कई बार शायद ये बात इन 10 दिनों में कही है कि हुसैन जैसी पर्सनैलिटी, हुसैन जैसी शख्सियत जिसके लिए रसूलुल्लाह ने इतने गुण गाए, रसूलुल्लाह ने इतनी अहादीस कहीं, रसूलुल्लाह ने इतने फ़ज़ाइल पढ़े, जब हुसैन जैसी शख्सियत किसी चीज़ पे अपने आप को क़ुरबान कर दे तो उस चीज़ की क्या अहमियत होगी, राइट? मैं और आप अगर किसी चीज़ के लिए जान दे रहे हैं तो बहरहाल हम और आप हैं, फिर भी लोग कहेंगे बहरहाल इन्होंने उस चीज़ के लिए जान दी. हुसैन जो कि हुसैनुन मिन्नी व अना मिन हुसैन है, जो मिसबाहुल हुदा है, सफ़ीनतुन निजात है, वो हुसैन कि जो हुसैन से मोहब्बत करे, माना हब्बा हुसैनन, अल्लाह उससे मोहब्बत करता है. वो हुसैन अगर किसी के लिए या किसी चीज़ के लिए अपनी जान निछावर कर रहा है तो उस चीज़ की क्या अहमियत होगी. ज़रा इसके बारे में सोचें कि इमाम हुसैन के मकसद को कहीं ना भुला बैठें कि इमाम किस मकसद के लिए निकले थे, किस दीन को बचाने के लिए निकले थे. इसीलिए चौथे इमाम ने जब इमाम की शहादत के बाद से किसी ने ताना दिया या पूछा तो कहा हाँ मार दिए गए, शहीद कर दिए गए, मगर यही खुदा की रज़ामंदी थी, इसमें यही क़ज़ा खुदा थी. अगर 1000 हुसैन भी चाहते तो उनको कुर्बान कर देते इस दीन की खातिर. ये वैल्यू है, ये मकसद है इस मज़हब का. इमाम हुसैन का एक काफ़िला चल रहा था, रास्ते में एक वो मकाम आता है कि जहाँ इमाम को थोड़ी देर की आँख लगी. इमाम सोए, एक ख्वाब देखा, ख्वाब से जब बेदार हुए تو امام نے حضرت علی اکبر سے کہا کہ میں دیکھ رہا ہوں کہ ہم لوگ موت کی طرف بڑھ رہے ہیں. ادھر بیٹا سوال کئی کر سکتا تھا, کیوں بابا موت کی طرف کیوں بڑھ رہے ہیں, کوئی فوج آنے والی ہے, ہم کیوں اس طرف جا رہے ہیں, ہم کسی اور طرف کیوں نہیں جاتے, بابا وہاں پہ کیا دیکھا آپ نے, آپ کے خواب کی کیا تعویل ہے, آپ کے خواب کی. کوئی سوال نہیں کیا اس بیٹے نے. فخر اسماعیل ہے نا, اسماعیل نے کیا کہا تھا باپ سے, افعل ما تؤمر ستجدنی انشاءاللہ من الصابرین. اے بابا آپ نے خواب میں دیکھا کہ آپ مجھے ذبح کر رہے ہیں, کیجئے, یہ اللہ کا حکم ہے, آپ مجھ کو صبر کرنے والوں میں سے پائیں گے. یہ فخر اسماعیل ہیں علی اکبر. انہوں نے کوئی سوال نہیں کیا, لیکن ایک چیز کہی, افلسنا علی الحق, کیا ہم حق پہ نہیں ہیں. امام نے کہا اگر کوئی ذات آج کے دن حق پہ ہے تو وہ میں ہوں. کہا اذن لا نبالی بالموت, پھر ہمیں موت کی کیا فکر ہے, موت ہم پہ واقع ہو جائے یا ہم موت کے اوپر واقع ہو جائیں, اذن لا نبالی, کوئی فرق نہیں پڑتا ہمیں کہ موت ہم پہ آ پڑے یا ہم موت کے اوپر جا پڑیں. یہ حضرت علی اکبر کی زبان سے الفاظ ادا ہوئے ہیں. مقتل میں آپ اگر اٹھا کے دیکھیں روایات تو سن مبارک 18 یا 19 سال کا ملتا ہے. میکسیمم اگر کسی نے لکھا ہے تو 27 سال لکھا ہے, لیکن وہ روایتیں قیلہ کی ہیں, 18 ہی سال تسلیم کرتے ہیں. 18-19 سال کا جوان, کڑیل جوان. اس لیے بھی لوگ کہتے ہیں کہ شاید امام زین العابدین سے بڑے تھے, چونکہ امام زین العابدین کی ولادت 38 میں ہوئی ہے, تو امام 23 سال کے ہیں. اگر علی اکبر 18 کے ہیں تو امام سے چھوٹے ہوئے تو ان کو علی اکبر کیوں کہتے ہیں اس کا مقصد یہ ہے کہ کربلا میں 2 علی شہید ہوئے, ایک بڑا اور ایک چھوٹا, ایک علی اکبر اور ایک علی اصغر. اس لحاظ سے اکبر اور اصغر کہا جاتا ہے. لیکن امام حسین نے اپنے تمام اولادوں کے نام علی رکھے تھے, تمام بیٹیوں کے نام فاطمہ رکھے تھے. کسی نے پوچھا کہ تمہارے باپ کو کوئی اور نام نہ ملا, کہ اگر میرے باپ کی 100 اولادیں ہوتی سب کا نام علی رکھ دیتے. تو وہ علی اکبر ہیں اور یہ علی اصغر ہیں. حضرت علی اکبر وہ جوان ہے کہ جس کی پرورش حضرت عباس نے تربیت کی ہے جنگ کی مہارت سکھانے میں. ایک دفعہ ملتا ہے کہ امام نے حضرت علی اکبر سے کہا کہ اذان دو بیٹا. حضرت علی اکبر نے روز عاشور اذان دی. میں نہیں جانتا کہ امام نے کیوں اذان دینے کے لیے کہا ہوگا. شاید ہو سکتا ہے کہ وہ اعلان تھا کہ اب جنگ شروع ہونے والی ہے. ادھر اذان ختم ہوئی تھی, ادھر سے تیروں کی بارش شروع ہو گئی. ایک ایک کر کے اصحاب نے اپنی جان کی قربانیاں دیں. جب سارے اصحاب جام شہادت نوش کر چکے, روایت میں ملتا ہے کہ پہلا شخص اول من بنی ہاشم, جو سب سے پہلے مقتل میں گیا ہے بنو ہاشم میں سے, وہ حضرت علی اکبر ہیں. کچھ روایات یہ کہتی ہیں کہ علی اکبر نے آ کے اذن جہاد طلب کیا, امام نے بلا جھجک جانے کی اجازت دے دی. اور کچھ روایت یہ کہتی ہیں کہ جب سارے اصحاب شہید ہو گئے تو امام نے حضرت علی اکبر کو بلایا اور کہا تقدم ولدی, میرے بیٹے آگے بڑھو, یعنی اب سب کو جانا ہے. میں کہوں گا مولا ادھر جب دوسرے بچوں نے آپ سے آ کے تقاضا کیا, گڑ گڑائے, بار بار گزارش کی, تو آپ ان کو پلٹا دیتے تھے, جواب نہیں دیتے تھے, آپ بہانے تراشتے تھے. آپ نے یہ کہا وہ کہا, واپس جاؤ, تمہاری ماں کیا کہے گی, تمہارے باپ کا بھی غم اس کے لیے تازہ ہے, اس کے لیے تمہارا غم 2 برابر ہو جائے گا. آپ اس طریقے کے بہانے تراشتے تھے. لیکن جب علی اکبر کی باری آئی تو کوئی بہانہ نہیں تھا, آپ نے کہا تقدم ولدی. یہ ہے امام کا جذبہ. امام آئے ہیں جس مقصد کے لیے بتانا چاہتے ہیں کہ جس طریقے سے ابراہیم کے پاس جب اللہ نے وہ اولاد دی کہ فلما بلغ معه السعی, اس قابل ہو گئی کہ باپ کا ہاتھ بٹا سکے, تو اللہ نے کہا اس اولاد کو ہم تم سے لے لینا چاہتے ہیں. لے لینے میں حضرت ابراہیم نے کوئی جھجک نہ دکھائی, کوئی ان کو تذبذب نہ تھا. اللہ نے دیا ہے, اللہ چاہے تو جب لے لے, مجھے کوئی رجحان نہیں ہے. امام بھی یہی بتانا چاہتے ہیں, اولاد یقیناً ہے, کڑیل جوان یقیناً ہے, لیکن ہاں جب بات آئی ادھر تو ہم بھی وہی صبر دکھائیں گے, ہم بھی اسی طریقے سے چلیں گے جو سنت ابراہیمی ہے, جو فخر اسماعیل ہے. بس علی اکبر کو ایک دفعہ امام نے اذن جہاد تو دیا, لیکن کہا کہ پہلے جا کے ان بیویوں سے وداع کر لو، ان سے بھی اجازت لے لو کہ جن کے اوپر تمہارا حق ہے۔ حضرت علی اکبر آتے ہیں تمام بیویوں کے پاس خیمہ گاہ میں، آ کے ایک دفعہ اجازت طلب کرتے ہیں۔ اگر ان کی مادر گرامی موجود تھیں تو ان سے طلب کرتے ہیں، پھپھیاں موجود ہیں ان سے طلب کرتے ہیں۔ جناب زینب کے پاس آتے ہیں، تمام بیویوں نے حلقہ بنا لیا، ایسے کہ جیسے کسی کی بارات نکلتی ہے، کوئی دولہا آ رہا ہوتا ہے اور بیویوں نے یوں گھیرا کر لیا۔ حضرت علی اکبر درمیان میں ہیں اور بیویاں حسرت بھری نگاہ سے علی اکبر کو اوپر سے نیچے تک دیکھتی ہیں۔ علی اکبر نکلنا چاہتے ہیں۔ راوی کہتا ہے علی اکبر جس خیمے میں گئے تھے بار بار خیمے کا پردہ اٹھتا تھا، علی اکبر باہر آنا چاہتے تھے لیکن کوئی پیچھے سے کھینچ کے واپس اندر بلا لیتا تھا۔ کئی بار یہ چیز تکرار ہوئی، آخری مرتبہ جب علی اکبر باہر آئے تو اس دفعہ شانہ پکڑ کے نہیں بلکہ لباس کا دامن پکڑ کے کھینچا، لگتا ہے کہ کوئی بچہ ہوگا۔ جواب ملا ہاں ننھی سکینہ تھی کہ جس نے اپنے بھیا کو واپس بلایا۔ علی اکبر نے کس طریقے سے ان بیویوں سے خدا حافظ کیا، وداع کیا ہوگا، اجازت لی ہوگی، میں نہیں جانتا۔ کسی طریقے سے باہر آتے ہیں، بابا کے پاس پہنچے، امام حسین نے آمادہ کیا، علی اکبر کو دیکھا اوپر سے لے کے نیچے تک۔ ایک گزارش کی بیٹا جب تم مقتل کی طرف جاؤ نا تو مڑ کے پیچھے دیکھتے جانا۔ علی اکبر اس شوق جہاد میں کہ کیسے جائیں اور جوہر دکھائیں اور کس طریقے سے جنگ کے جوہر دکھائیں، شاید بیٹے کے ذہن سے بات نکل گئی کہ بابا نے تقاضا کیا تھا جاتے جاتے پیچھے مڑ کے دیکھتے رہنا۔ علی اکبر چلے لیکن پیچھے دیکھنا بھول گئے۔ پیچھے سے شاید آواز آئی مہلن مہلن یا بنیا، پلٹ کے جو دیکھا بوڑھا باپ گرتا پڑتا آ رہا۔ اجرکم اللہ، خدا کسی غم میں نہ رلائے سوائے غم آل محمد کے۔ علی اکبر ایک مطیع فرزند بھی ہے، پلٹتے ہیں، واپس آئے، ادب سے گھوڑے سے اترے، بابا کا ہاتھ چوما۔ ارے بابا آپ نے اجازت دے دی تھی، اب یہ زحمت کیوں کی؟ امام کیا جواب دے؟ آپ سب جواب جانتے ہیں۔ صاحبان اولاد یہ جملہ برداشت نہ کر سکیں گے کہ امام نے کہا علی اکبر اگر تم صاحب اولاد ہوتے تو تم یہ سوال ہرگز نہ کرتے کہ ایک بوڑھا باپ اپنے جوان فرزند کو مرنے کے لیے کیسے بھیج سکتا ہے۔ اجرکم اللہ۔ دوبارہ علی اکبر واپس آتے ہیں، مقتل کا رخ کیا، رجز پڑا، اپنے آپ کی معرفی کروائی۔ ایک دفعہ ملتا ہے روایات میں کہ علی اکبر نے اتنے دشمنوں کو واصل جہنم کیا کہ جیسے جنگ کرتے کرتے تھک گئے، اب بھوک اور پیاس کا عالم تھا، دھوپ تھی سر کے اوپر۔ ایک دفعہ واپس پلٹتے ہیں، آتے ہیں بابا کے پاس، اے بابا یہ العطش قد قتلنی، ارے پیاس مجھے مار ڈال رہی ہے اور یہ ذرا اتنی بھاری ہے، ثقیل ہے کہ دھوپ اور گرمی کی وجہ سے بڑا سخت ہے، کیا ہو سکتا ہے کہ ایک گھونٹ پانی مل جائے؟ ارے وہ باپ کتنا بے بس ہوگا کہ بچہ اس سے، بیٹا اس سے پانی طلب کرے اور وہ پانی نہ دے سکے۔ امام حسین نے کہا علی اکبر اپنی زبان میری زبان پہ رکھ دو، زبان کا رکھنا تھا، فوراً کھینچ لی۔ کہا بابا آپ کی زبان مجھ سے بھی زیادہ خشک ہے۔ امام نے انگوٹھی دی، کہا اس کو منہ میں رکھو کچھ افاقہ ہوگا۔ علی اکبر نے انگوٹھی لی، امام نے کہا بیٹا جاؤ جہاد کرو، تھوڑی ہی دیر میں ساقی کوثر تمہیں پانی پلا دیں گے۔ علی اکبر واپس آتے ہیں, دوبارہ جنگی جوہر دکھائے, لیکن دشمن سمجھ گیا یہ جوان اتنی آسانی سے نہیں آئے گا قابو. ہر ایک نے مل کے حملہ کیا. ایسے حملے ہوئے کہ علی اکبر ڈگمگا کے زی سے زمین پہ آئے. دشمن کو موقع ملا, علی اکبر کی چھاتی پہ ایک ایسا وار کیا, ایسا خنجر پیوست کیا کہ علی اکبر سے سانس نہ لی گئی. باپ کو مدد کے لیے نہیں پکارا, کہا السلام علیکہ یا ابتا, اے بابا آپ پر سلام. امام حسین کھڑے ہوتے ہیں, کبھی گرتے ہیں بیٹے کے لاشے پہ پہنچنے کے لیے. کئی دفعہ امام گرے, لیکن جب پہنچے تو کیا دیکھا, بچہ آخری سانسیں لے رہا ہے. امام نے دیکھا علی اکبر اپنے ہاتھ کو سینے پہ رکھے ہوئے ہیں. ارے بیٹا کیا ہوا سینے پہ؟ بابا میں نہیں دکھانا چاہتا, مجھے ساقی کوثر نے پانی پلا دیا. ارے بیٹا لیکن یہ کیا ہے؟ ہاتھ جو ہٹایا برچی کا پھل علی اکبر کے جگر میں. امام نے بیٹے کے سر کو گھٹنے پہ رکھا, شاید نجف کا رخ کیا ہوگا. ارے بابا خیبر اکھاڑنا آسان تھا, بچے کے سینے سے برچی مشکل. ماتم حسین.